16, verse 25. And if you want, go ahead and while you're doing that, let me give you the backstory. You probably know this story about Paul and Silas. They were up against some opposition. They were going to temple, house of prayer, and they were met with this girl who was a slave to her owners. She had this spirit in which she could predict the future. So her owners were using her in order to make money through fortune telling. And Paul got so annoyed at this girl who was saying, hey, Paul and Silas are preaching the gospel, they're preaching the truth. And Paul got so annoyed at it that he rebuked the spirit out of that girl, and then the owner seized her because they couldn't make money anymore. So they ended up in jail. And what we all know, at the midnight hour, what happened? Well, Paul and Silas started worshiping and an earthquake happened. They ended up getting out of jail. But at verse 25, that's what we start to hear, but I want to give you a different perspective into the story, because if you look at it a little closer, you can see Paul and Silas, of course, the miracle happened, the earthquake happened, but they weren't really the ones who were close to death necessarily. They weren't really worried at all. There was someone who had a sword to their head and was about to kill themselves, and it's pretty significant. It says, about midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. Suddenly, there was such a violent earthquake that the foundations of the prison were shaken. At once, all the prison doors flew open, and everyone's chains came loose. So that's what we know. That's what most of us know. And then verse 27, the jailer woke up, and when he saw the prison doors open, he drew his sword and was about to kill himself, because he thought the prisoners had escaped. But Paul shouted, don't harm yourself, we're all here. Verse 29, the jailer came for lights, rushed in, and fell trembling before Paul and Silas. He then brought them out and said, sirs, what must I do to be saved? I'll stop right there. So, I didn't introduce myself really very well, but I'm Christian again. Where's my mom? My mom, that's my mom over there. That's my dad. My older brother has just graduated 2 days ago from high school, and he's over there in the back, and I have a younger brother as well. Yeah, I have a younger brother as well. So that's my family, but family is obviously important. One thing I do, go to them, help me with different stuff. And they help me in different ways, let me tell you. Let me tell you different ways. My mom, first of all, my mom usually, I go to stuff for when I'm worried, when it's come to, everything but school related, I go to my mom, or my dad, but my mom. And my mom will be like, when I have a problem, the other day I was like, I don't have much time because I started weight tech courses, and it was also the week of my exams. So I didn't have time to really study and do the courses, because if you do it late at school, you can make up work, but it's a zero if you turn in late. So I didn't really have time to do the work. Plus I joined one of the classes late. So I didn't have much time. So I was talking to her, and she was like, I said something, I can't do it because I don't have enough time. And when I said that, she was like, look at me in the eye, and you can do it. And she started speaking in tongues, and she started declaring the goodness of God over me, because it was that thing I said, I can't do it. And it was kind of an identity thing, so she broke it out of me, and she started screaming at me, and it was pretty funny. And then there's the other extreme of my dad. Oh my gosh. The exact opposite is what he does. I go to him just once in a while, because I know he's not like my mom, so I only go to him once in a while. And the times I go to him and I say, I can't, for example, I can't go to this place because I don't have enough time, I gotta finish my homework. I can't go to the, let's say, youth event. And he'll be like, don't worry. Life is short. Okay? Don't worry. God is good. Don't even worry about it. Doesn't matter. And then there's my brothers. I'll get to Nathaniel in a minute. Emmanuel, most of the time it's schoolwork. When I go to him for anything, it's usually schoolwork. Ask him about a problem or something to help me. And when I feel, he can like tell, like all my family members, but you could tell when I'm like, it's like I'm worried about it, rather than I just need help versus I'm worried about it and it's like important. And sometimes he'll say like, let me tell you this story. I was talking to my dad. I don't remember exact details, but I was talking to my dad right here in the kitchen, and then my older brother starts walking in, and then I was talking about how I couldn't go somewhere because I had to do homework. I was talking about homework with my dad, and then my older brother from here is walking in, and he said, "Oh, you don't have time. Hey, now you're growing up, huh? You're growing up. You got life." For him, sleep is a miracle. I mean, time he doesn't have it. Sleep he doesn't have it. Probably doesn't have a lot more things. And he's like, "You're growing up. You're learning." So, and then there's my little brother. Nathaniel will always. The thing is, I don't really go to him because sometimes in myself, I think that for some reason, because he's younger and he doesn't have the ability. Now, I understand with schoolwork, but I mean, like, just in general, if I want to talk to him, sometimes I will go up to him because I think, why would I talk to him when I have my mom and my dad, and for schoolwork my brother? Why would I go to him because he can't really help me with much because he's younger and less able than them? And it kind of got me thinking, like, I'm limiting access. I don't know. I mean, I know him, but I don't know, like, what if he has a word from God that I need, and because I don't go to him sometimes for things because, like I said, schoolwork, I don't go to him, of course, but for things, if he's right there, and I want to talk to somebody, and he's right there, but I choose instead to walk to my mom for some reason, it's like I'm limiting myself almost when I don't talk to him about stuff that because I specifically feel like there are better people to talk to. I might be limiting myself from receiving maybe potentially a word from God that he has for me, or something he says that God speaks to me through. And so it's all based on the assumption that it's all based on this assumption that he's less able. And why would I talk to him when I can talk to one of them three or somebody else? And in this passage, we see that the jailer, he makes this assumption. If you read, I'm going to read verse 27. The jailer woke up, and when he saw the prison doors open, he drew his sword and was about to kill himself because, it doesn't say the prisoners had escaped. It says because he thought the prisoners had escaped. And what was probably going through his mind in that moment was, the jail doors are open, so he assumed the prisoners had escaped. If the prisoners had escaped, the authorities are going to catch him. And if the authorities catch him, he's probably going to be punished. And if he's punished, it's probably going to be public. And he's probably going to be sentenced to death. So why not commit suicide and avoid the public humiliation? That's probably his thought process. And it's all based on this assumption that the prisoners had escaped. He didn't even check the cell. But the passage doesn't just say he checked the cell. He didn't even check it. He just made the assumption that the prisoners had escaped. And maybe we make assumptions too. And it limits us from receiving what God has for us. Assumptions about ourselves, even like the littlest thing. Like, I can't go talk to that person who's sitting alone because I'm not a good prayer. I'm not a good speaker. I'm not good enough to talk to people because I've never done it before. We make assumptions about how we look. Like, I don't look good enough, and I was thinking about that. Do I look good enough? Do I look too fancy? And my mom helped me, of course. But I mean, like the way you look, the way you talk. I mean, just little things we think about, and we make assumptions based off of that that we can't do certain things, and we limit ourselves from doing not just what God has called us to do, but doing things we know we should do because of assumptions. I'm not good enough. Maybe it's assumptions about other people. They don't like me. Why should I talk to them? Why should I be around them? Why should I pray for them? Why? They probably don't care about me anyway. Like, we make assumptions, and we limit ourselves because of those assumptions. So, what Paul does is the most significant thing, because what we remember is Paul singing hymns and songs and worshiping God in the prison. But that's not where he stops. He also continues to speak, but it wasn't worship. Verse 28, but Paul shouted, "Don't harm yourself, we're all here." His voice stopped the jailer from killing himself. Okay, he was in jail and he got out, that's cool. But somebody's life was about to be taken away because of an assumption that wasn't even true. And because he shouted, he saved his life. And not only he saved his life, I didn't read this part, but not only he saved his life physically, but he saved him spiritually. He came to Christ, him and his whole family. Because Paul shouted, because he heard a voice. And I wonder, if we hear God's voice, could we change something? A significant change can happen in our life, whether it's reconciliation, redemption, or maybe a minor change, like the way we talk, the way we look at others, the way we assume things about others, the way we treat others. Like, if we eliminate those assumptions, we could be a much better person. And if we just take the time to hear God's voice rather than living our lives based off of assumptions that we don't even know are true, we could live in a called way, and we could walk with purpose like Paul and Silas were. We could walk knowing that God's purpose would prevail, whether we're in a palace or a prison. We could walk knowing that God would make a way where there was no way. And we could be like Paul and Silas. They weren't worried about getting out of prison. What they were focusing on is how God could use them while they were in prison, not how they would get out, because they knew they were going to get out, because they were called to preach, and God already made a path for them. He told them where to go next in advance. And so they knew they were going to get out, but they were wondering how God was going to use them, and they were open. And because they were open, Paul came and he shouted, and he saved the jailer's life. And so I wonder, are we going to be like the jailer? We're going to make assumptions about ourselves, about other people, about things related to our identity, and you base those assumptions and you allow those assumptions to limit us from something that God may be calling us into? Or are we going to be like Paul and Silas, who are not concerned about where they are, but how God can use them in that place? That's what I want to preach to you about. Thank you, guys.